Game week 28 is here, and this is the week everyone wants to buy a new midfielder, but no one knows the best midfielder to buy. Let's discuss. But before we get started, you guys should know the drill by now. Make sure you guys leave a like on this video, because I just know this video, there's gonna be a lot to talk about, especially once we get to the midfield section. But let's start with the defense for this week, and I currently am starting Verbruggen in goal against Nottingham Forest over the Bravco's Brentford at home. What's the reasoning? Verbruggen obviously playing a team that played in Europe in Nottingham Forest. They lost yesterday to Fenerbahce, but they still went through. So I'm hoping a bit of fatigue might come into play in that game. And Brighton, obviously they got a clean sheet last week. Hopefully that can continue. And more importantly, I don't have any Nottingham Forest attackers. I do have Brentford attackers in Thiago and maybe one more. The defence, you guys know, I was thinking about taking out potentially Timber to Virgil van Dijk, but the more I was thinking about it, first of all, that would have taken me a -4 because I do want to make a midfield switch. But more importantly, I was comparing Arsenal's clean sheet odds to Liverpool's from game week 28 to 31, if we're penciling in that game week 32 wildcard for now, let's say. And if we're looking at it this week, who has a higher clean sheet percentage? Arsenal. Next week, in game week 29, who has a higher chance? Arsenal. Game week 30, much a lot higher chance for Arsenal. And then obviously game week 31, Arsenal blank, Liverpool have the higher clean sheet odds. So the clean sheet odds over the next couple weeks are still favouring Arsenal, let's say. Then the question becomes, why are people going Virgil van Dijk? Of course, I'm aware Virgil van Dijk has more DEFCON potential. You can argue probably has a bit more attacking potential in terms of he's got 3 attacking returns in the last 5 games. But at the same time, I just don't think that warrants a transfer for me. With only 1 free transfer, I just don't want to make it on Virgil van Dijk. Game week 31, if we get to that point where I obviously going to need a defender, I would rather just go with a Fulham defender for that week who have Burnley at home and double up with obviously Joachim Andersen. But for now, I think I'm going to lean towards avoiding Virgil van Dijk. That's why I'm keeping Timber for now. Let me know what you guys think. I'm obviously going to have Gabriel. Listen, is Arsenal, is Chelsea. Chelsea are poor at defending set pieces. And I said it on my What We Learnt video last time, that if we're looking at expected goals conceded from set pieces, Chelsea are the worst side in the Premier League. So listen, Gabriel, this could be the game where he finally gets himself another headed goal from a corner. The next man, Munoz. Now, this is a very difficult one, and this is not something I've 100% locked in for now in terms of Munoz versus Joachim Andersen, who's on my bench. Joachim Andersen has Tottenham at home, Munoz has Manchester United away, and you can argue the fixture is definitely better for Joachim Andersen. And if we're looking at clean sheet odds for this week, you guys would be correct. Fulham have a 28% chance of keeping a clean sheet, and obviously Joachim Andersen's relatively good for DEFCON. Munoz just a 13% chance against Manchester United. So why am I starting Munoz over Joachim Andersen? My reasoning is, first of all, I don't know, innit? I don't know. This is a very tough call. But Tottenham are starting to get a couple players back and starting to get a couple defenders back, more importantly. And one of the things that we learned about Igor Tudor in his last game, or first game for Tottenham, was that he wanted his backline to be a bit more aggressive. If they have the likes of Romero, Pedro Porro back, for example, and they don't have to, let's say, play Paulinho at centre-back, I'm guessing they'll probably push up a bit more. Another week in the training ground where, listen, Tottenham will look a little bit better. And obviously, if they're pressing up forward, they're going to get further forward, which should entail Tottenham having a better chance of scoring, for example, innit? So, listen, I think a week training for Igor Tudor would have done massive, where I think Tottenham will score. But then at the same time, I also think Manchester United score against Crystal Palace. But if we're looking at those like goal scoring odds, for example, for Manchester United, it's 2.02. I haven't been personally impressed with Manchester United when it comes down to breaking, let's say, a relatively low block. I think against West Ham, they look very, very disappointing. And Crystal Palace are obviously going to be very, very defensively set out, especially after Europe, where they're probably a bit more fatigued. You've seen teams defensively after Europe just be a bit more solid. Newcastle done it a lot at the start of the season. Crystal Palace might do the exact same thing. So then, let's just say both of them score, Tottenham and Manchester United. Who has the higher chance of getting a goal contribution? It's going to be Munoz. You could argue Anderson has the higher chance of getting DEFCON, but then it might be a Joachim Andersen, another 2 points for DEFCON, versus Munoz getting minimum 3 points for an assist or more for a goal kind of thing, innit? So I'm going to lean towards Munoz right now. But again, this is a very, very tough call. Lacroix being back as well is also a massive hope for Crystal Palace's clean sheet potential and just defensive solidity as a whole. So I'm going to go with Munoz for now. But again, don't quote me on this. It might change kind of thing. Get it closer to the deadline because this is obviously a very, very tough call. But anyway, that's the defense done. And now onto the midfield. Listen, you just don't get any easy explaining my decisions. I think this is a very, very difficult week for FPL, by the way. But anyway, let's start with the easier option. Anton Semenyo against Leeds away. I actually think this is a very, very good fixture for Semenyo and Manchester City. Actually, not Manchester City as a whole. Let's just say Semenyo. The reason I say that is obviously if we expect Marmoush to play, Semenyo will obviously play slightly deeper. And one thing I do think with Leeds, even though I've been very, very impressed with them, 2 defeats in the last 14, I still do think at times the gap between defence and midfield that they leave might be too big. We saw Chelsea a couple of weeks ago with Cole Palmer exploited very, very well. That's one of Cole Palmer's best performances so far this season. So I'm looking at Semenyo, who's such a strong ball carrier. Can he potentially capitalise and just carry the ball forward for Manchester City and look like a constant threat? I think the answer to that question is yes. I'm actually very, very hopeful for his prospects this week. I'm going to leave Dango for now. Let's talk about Bruno Fernandes, Crystal Palace at home. Like I said, very interesting game in terms of how Manchester United are obviously going to set up. Is Sesko going to come in? If Sesko comes in, does that bolster Manchester United's, let's say, attacking potential? Probably, because he's probably needed in a game like this. But again, with Bruno Fernandes, I haven't been overly impressed with Bruno's performances the last couple of games. We know when it comes to captaincy, we'll discuss it a bit more. His DEFCON has completely fallen off under Michael Carrick in that, let's say, number 10 role. So listen, he will be playing for me, obviously, this week. Captaincy, I'll discuss a bit more when I talk about Erling Haaland. And Declan Rice, I'm going to keep for one more week. Like I said, he was initially the person that I was planning to take out this week, taking out -4 to bring in Wirtz. Wirtz is obviously ruled out for this week. I don't want Wirtz, even if he was fit. Like Arnie Slot confirmed that. The turnaround between this game and Tuesday for Liverpool is just too short where I don't want to risk Florian Wirtz. So Rice will be here for now. We know he's going to play. We know probably he has a decent chance of DEFCON against Chelsea. And like I said, set pieces, Chelsea cannot defend them. Then, Dango Otara. Why have I chosen Dango Otara as my Enzo Fernandez replacement over the likes of Ryan and over the likes of Wilson? This is the first of all. Very, very tough call. Very tough call. It's going to be difficult to explain because I genuinely think between all three of them, it is a coin flip. But let's start by looking at goal projections between 28 to 31. And it is relatively tight for every single team. If we're looking at Bournemouth, Bournemouth are projected 6.6 goals from now until game week 31, which is the blank. Brentford, it is 6.2, so they're a bit lower. Fulham, obviously we have to talk about Harry Wilson, it is 6.3. So, Brentford probably have the lowest, they have the lowest projected goal odds. But, why have I still chosen Dango Otara? Listen, one of the main reasons I've chosen Dango Otara is a lot of people are planning or penciling game week 32 as the week that they want to wildcard. But we obviously know with how the FA Cup fixtures fall between the next round and obviously the quarterfinals, that things can change very, very quickly. And our plan to, let's say, wildcard in 32 might be completely thrown up depending about how teams progress in the further rounds in the FA Cup. Which is why, if we're looking at game week 32 to 34, who has the best fixtures out of any of these sides? It is, again, Brentford. So, if by any chance we don't wildcard in game week 32, having Dango Otara for those next couple of fixtures is probably going to be a lot more useful than having, for example, a Harry Wilson or a Ryan from Bournemouth. Then, the next question becomes, if we're looking at game week 31, which is obviously the blank for now, do I want to, let's say, who has the best fixture in the blank? It is Harry Wilson. But if we're looking at my personal opinion, I expect Tottenham to be massively improved this week. So listen, I still think Harry Wilson can score. I still think Harry Wilson can get an assist, for example. But the best Harry Wilson fixture is later on towards this run, which is 31, which is Burnley at home. Which, listen, I'll definitely have it for then. So I can kind of avoid that now. And I've always said Burnley's the fixture to target, which is why I'm going to go with Dango for now. Regarding Ryan, I actually think Ryan's minutes are a lot more, let's say, certain than a lot of people think. Just in terms of the profile that he is, no one else in the Bournemouth squad is like that explosiveness, the ball carrying ability. He's the closest person to Semenyo, who was a 90-minute man. After Semenyo, after Ryan, for example, now, they have no one else similar to Ryan, which is why I think Iraola is really going to, let's say, realize that and just give him the 90 minutes. We saw the last couple of games, he's got 90 minutes. Even the game before that, he got 85 plus. This is a new person coming to a new league, getting those amount of minutes straight away. You just know he's going to be a starting 11 player straight away, and his minutes should be good. I don't think his minutes are at risk in terms of the rotation that people think, for example, when Tavernier comes into the side. Ryan will still be in. But I'm going to go with Dango Otara for now. Remember, game week 30, Bournemouth have Burnley as well. So if I really wanted to have another Bournemouth player by that point, I can obviously bring in Ryan. But if we're looking at the immediate future, Dango, Otara, and Brentford have the best fixtures in my eyes. And it just leaves me with a bit more, let's say, peace going forward, that I can change my chip strategy if required. And my team will still look good for, let's say, 32 without a wildcard. So that's the midfield done. I've also got James Garner on the bench as well against Newcastle away. Not a bad fixture for Defcon probably. But the midfield that I've picked currently is better. And the attack, this also came into my thinking a little bit in terms of my decision making as well. Because I obviously have a Bournemouth attacker in Evan Wilson. I have a Brentford attacker, Thiago. So there was a part of me that thinks, should I just go with Harry Wilson just to, let's say, differentiate my odds, have one player from each side? But I thought, there's no real point of doing that. And remember, guys, I can literally go Declan Rice to Harry Wilson next week, when Harry Wilson has their better fixture in game week 30 in West Ham. No, sorry, game week 29 against West Ham. So that also came into my consideration. But obviously, let's get back to my attack. Evan Wilson, Sunderland at home, not a bad fixture. Sunderland without Mukiele as well, which is obviously a big loss for Sunderland in terms of how defensively solid they are. We know how good he's been this season for them. Evan Wilson, is he going to perform? Is he going to get a goal? Probably not. But listen, the minutes should be good. We know he's still going to be a Bournemouth number 9. Let's just see how he does. Thiago against Burnley. Again, like we said, brilliant fixture. And he's actually not a bad captaincy option. Let's just discuss captaincy right now between Thiago, Haaland, and Bruno Fernandes. Because I'm actually not certain on all of them. Like, this is one week where I think you can kind of go a bit differential for captaincy in terms of, are you really confident enough captaining a Brentford player who we know, listen, Brentford are probably better at home, first of all. And secondly, Brentford they're not one of the best sides in the league. They are hit and miss sometimes. You expect Brentford to win, but Burnley have pulled out a couple good results in recent weeks. So why have I gone with Erling Haaland over Bruno Fernandes? I don't know. Again, this is a very tough call. If we're looking at points projections for this week, Bruno Fernandes is slightly higher. But at the same time, like I said before, I haven't been impressed with Bruno Fernandes and Manchester United's performances over the last 2 weeks from an offensive point of view. Which is why I'm kind of leaning against Bruno Fernandes. Plus, like I said, he's lost Defcon now. So he can't really get an assist, get Defcon, get a couple bonus and walk out with, a 10 to 12 pointer. It's not going to be that easy now for Bruno Fernandes. He's going to get he has to get 2 more returns kind of thing. But then, Haaland, Leeds, the way he was born kind of thing, the story. I still think Leeds are slightly weaker than Crystal Palace defensively. Stylistically, I think Manchester City will just create more chances against Leeds than Manchester United will against Crystal Palace at home. So I'm leaning towards Erling Haaland for now. But again, this is a very tough call because obviously I see the benefits with Bruno Fernandes as well. He has a home fixtures. Crystal Palace after Europe. Like I said, with Haaland, the negative is Leeds are a very good side. 2 losses in the last 14. So this is a very tough call. Very tough call. But I'm going to lean towards Erling Haaland. If we're looking at market projections for goals, Erling Haaland is obviously top. Bruno Fernandes is currently 14th with 0.41. And regarding the midfielder debate again, this is where it's also very interesting. Dango Otara is 0.27. Ryan is 0.31. Harry Wilson is 0.30. So they're all relatively high, close together. Sharda, by the way, is 0.32. If I had the money, by the way, to go from Enzo to Sharda, I would have done it. Like, Sharda for me is the best option just because of his explosive potential that he has. And we know he's already got a hat-trick this season. But I'm 0.1 million short, which is very frustrating. But that's why for now, Dango Otara is the man I've chosen. That's how I'm lining up for game week 28. A lot of decisions to make from now until literally the deadline, which is today. Because I feel like this week is going to be very swingy. There's a lot of let's say, close games in terms of projections, for example. There's a lot of decisions that a lot of people are debating, especially the midfielders. Munoz, Anderson's obviously a debate. People getting rid of Timber versus Virgil van Dijk. I think that could be a good battle this week in terms of points. It's going to be a very, very interesting week. So let's just see how it turns out. That's how my team is looking at for Game Week 28. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we will be back soon.